Now, another thing we need to know before we get to the photochemical phase of photosynthesis under the mechanism of photosynthesis topic that we are studying, we have to understand what is a photosystem or a pigment system. We had talked about the photosynthetic unit, didn't we? So in that we had discussed what all comprises a photosynthetic unit. It would be the smallest group of pigment molecules. How many molecules? As many as 250 to 400 pigment molecules would be present, and they would be present in the form of a group. The photosynthetic unit that we had talked about, that would be present in the form of a group, and those two groups would be present, not just one. There would be two groups that would be present, and what it would be a photosynthetic unit. So we can say that what is a photosystem? It is a group according to which a photosynthetic unit is present, or otherwise we can put it that way, that photosynthetic unit is present in the form of two different groups, and those groups are known as photosystems or the pigment systems. Now if you remember, we had written P700 in the photosynthetic unit, and I had told you that there is another thing that known as P680. So these are the two pigment centers that we had talked about. Now in the case of pigment systems, we have two pigment systems. One is photosystem. We don't use the term pigment system that commonly, we use photosystem, and that would be used in your lessons by me. Photosystem 1 and photosystem 2. These are the two systems in which the form in which the photosynthetic unit would be present, PS1 and PS2. The PS1 has the reaction center, that is P700, and the PS2 has the reaction center, that is P680. Now you remember what was the purpose of reaction center? It was for excitation of the electrons, and it had accessory pigments along with it. Now what you have to remember when we talk about the photosynthetic units over here, and in units when we talk about the photosystems, the P700 has more of chlorophyll A. They have a lot of chlorophyll A, and that chlorophyll A particularly corresponds to the wavelength, that is 700 nanometer. It is having lot many chlorophyll A pigments, and the number of chlorophyll B pigments is lesser, and yet lesser carotenoids are present in this photosystem. Talking about the photosystem 2, here the chlorophyll A and chlorophyll B are equivalent in number. Okay, as much as chlorophyll A is present, that much chlorophyll B would be present in the form of, chlorophyll B is not the reaction center, it would be the accessory pigment, and the chlorophyll A that would be present, it would be a special type of chlorophyll A that responds to the 680 nanometer wavelength of sunlight. So this chlorophyll A corresponds to 680, this chlorophyll A corresponds to 700. Now the difference is that the photosystem 1 would be corresponding to 700 nanometer wavelength of sunlight, will have that chlorophyll which is sensitive to this particular wavelength, and it would be more in number as compared to chlorophyll B. The one which corresponds to 600 nanometer wavelength will have equal amount of chlorophyll A and chlorophyll B, and the carotenoids which would be present in the form of accessory pigments that would form the antenna molecules and the core molecules, they would be not in that much quantity, but comparatively, in comparative terms, the carotenoids present in photosystem 1 would be lesser as compared to present in the photosystem 2. So we can say that over here we have the accessory pigments which are almost equivalent in number to the main pigment, okay, the pigment center that we had discussed about. Now because these photosystems play an important role in electron transport system, that is known as ETS or electron transport chain, you know what is the purpose of each photosynthetic unit? Basically it has to play an important role in the photochemical reaction, and the photochemical reaction is nothing but the movement of electron from one place to another. Now when the electron has to move, it would be either gone from particular unit and it would be taken up by some other unit. So what we have over here is that we have reduction process that is taking place. Reducing of particular pigment would take place, or particular compound that would be present, it would take place. So along with these pigment molecules, we have many agents which are present, like we have agent X. Now this seems like some detective movie. This PS1 has agent X, that is reducing agent. We have an FES center, we have plastoquinone, we have plastocyanin, we have cytochrome centers. These terms are going to be introduced when we study in detail the electron transport system. So in case you have ever studied about them in your previous classes, you can just remember them, that what all is associated with photosystem 1 and photosystem 2. You have to remember that over here there would be reducing complex involving ion compounds, okay? Iron would be involved, and in the case of photosystem 2 there would be presence of magnesium, manganese, chlorine, plastoquinone, plastocyanin. These things would be present. Now these are little bit difficult terms that you come across, but you have to remember them by heart, because these are the particular compounds which are going to take up the electrons, okay? And when some compound takes up the electron, it gets reduced. So these terms which I have written, agent X, FES, plastoquinone, Mn positive, Cl, plastoquinone, plastocyanin, cytochrome complexes, these are nothing but these are going to be the compounds which would take up the electrons and they would get reduced themselves. So because we are dealing with the photosynthetic unit that has the role of its performance of taking up the energy from photon and getting its electron excited, we do talk about those compounds which are going to take up the electrons as well, and they are nothing else but they are reducing agent. They get reduced themselves. And one more thing you have to remember, that this photosystem 1 is present in the non-appressed parts of grana, okay, and they are present in, this one is present in non-appressed part of the grana, this one is present in the stroma as well, the stroma thylakoids. This is present only in grana thylakoids, this is present in grana and stroma thylakoids. One more thing you have to remember, new terms that we have, that PS1 is involved in cyclic as well as non-cyclic photophosphorylation. Now this is a new term. We are going to study in great length about this, that what is this. For now, what you have to remember is that the PS1 is involved in both cyclic and non-cyclic photophosphorylation, and PS2 is involved only in non-cyclic, again the difficult term, that is photo, that means something involving sunlight, phosphorylation. What is phosphorylation? That is the formation of ATP. Now remember this. For your subsequent lessons, what you have to remember is that these two pigment systems would be involved in the process of ATP formation. Now, somehow we are reaching step by step to the thing that was formation of energy, or formation of, though we are quite far off from formation of glucose, but one thing has come into our scenario, that is the formation of ATP is going to take place from the unit that we have studied. So this photosystem would be involved in the formation of ATP. How it would take place? For that we have to study the cyclic and non-cyclic photophosphorylation processes which are part of photochemical phase of photosynthesis, that we study in next lessons.